Okay, good morning to everybody. My name is Concetta Fonzo. I work at INAPP, in the National Institute for the Analysis of Public Policies in Italy, that hosts also the EQAVET National Reference Point. Today, I would like to introduce to you our experience in relation to the European peer review methodology. Next, please. So, next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So my presentation includes a short overview about the national context, a few words about quality assurance and evaluation in Italy, and of course I will focus on the peer review experimentations in the Italian context, and I will close with some lessons learned and future actions. Next, please. Starting from the national education system and our VET system, of course, like in many other European countries, our system is very rich. We have a lot of pathways, different pathways, courses, and levels. In Italy, VET is divided into two main strands at upper secondary level. We have technical and vocational schools that fall within the competence of the Ministry of Education. We have vocational education and training centers, which fall within the competence of the regions. At the post-secondary level, non-academic VET, we have VET provided by higher technical education and training courses and higher technical programs, which are, of course, promoted by higher technical institutes. We have a rich system also in terms of continuing training. VET for adults is also provided by adult education centers. So the system is, as you can see, very complex. And next slide, please. And the VET governance is not really easy. In fact, VET in Italy is characterized by a multi-level governance and multi-stakeholder governance. At national level, we have the national authorities, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Course of Labor, who are in charge of the national guidelines and national strategy for the VET governance. And then we have, of course, the regions and autonomous provinces who are responsible at regional and local level. A very active role is also played by the social partners. So in this very rich and articulated system, next slide, please. Of course, also quality assurance and the evaluation system is rather complex. There is not a single body responsible for quality assurance and evaluation, but several institutions are involved. Again, we have a national level with an active involvement by the national authorities, of course, Ministry of Education, but also University and Research, Ministry of Labor and Social Policies. All the ministries are supported by national institutes and agencies. And of course, as said before, also the regions and the autonomous provinces have an active role, in particular with relation to the VET system, and when it comes to the legislative power in relation to the planning and organization of the VET provision. Next slide, please. If we look to the national evaluation system, of course, our system includes both internal and external evaluation. Based on our law, both evaluations are part of the same procedure that consists of 4 phases, which take place over a period of 3 years. In this period, the 4 phases include mainly internal self-evaluation of schools, external evaluation of schools, improvement actions, and of course, dissemination of results and public accountability. This is what concerns so far the national schools evaluation system. But for VET in particular, next slide, please. a key role, an important role is played by the national reference point. The national reference point in Italy was established in 2006 at INAPP. The Italian national reference point is supervised by the Ministry of Labour and Social Policies, and it promotes a national board which defines and plans the reference point activities. These national points, together with the national main authorities and the main Italian national stakeholders, of course, is committed in the development of the national quality assurance system in Italy with regards to VET. Next slide, please. In particular, the national reference point supports, of course, the European dimension when it comes in particular to the implementation and dissemination of the European tools at national level. And in particular, it takes care about the European tools and methodologies. For the national reference point in Italy, peer review was considered an important methodology since the beginning of the European collaboration and cooperation. Peer review is considered an important external evaluation that supports VET providers and that allows to meet two important goals, quality assurance and quality development. So at the moment, our initiatives are all inspired by the European tools and models. And of course, the adaptation that we had at national level starts from the European peer review phases and cycle. Our adaptation included, of course, all the four phases. We started with the first phase, the preparation of the peer visit. The second phase, which includes the peer visit, of course, was adapted to the national context. And we included also phase 3 and 4. It means the peer report and implementation plan. So bearing in mind the national context, it was not easy to reach a real implementation of the European methodology. Anyway, next slide, please. The national reference point, since the beginning, started with a lot of national and transnational experimentations. The first experimentation took place in 2010, promoted by the Ministry of Labour and the Ministry of Education and financed with the European Social Fund. It involved, for the first time, 12 VET providers. It included 12 peer review visits and altogether 48 peers. The main aim of this first experimentation was to adapt the European methodology to the national context. After we had another important phase, the second phase, which started in 2012. The aim of the second phase was to strengthen and widen the national network of VET providers that use the peer review methodology. Another important goal was to involve also decision makers at local level, as for example the scholastic boards and the training departments. And finally, one of the main goals of the second experimentation was also to create a national register for peers. Next slide, please. As told by the previous speakers, these experimentations have been successful, and as mentioned by the other colleagues, it was a long process, but at the end it was successful in terms of adaptation, in terms of results. In fact, we also created the National Peers Register, which is a short list of Italian experts of the peer review methodology. It means that the experts can submit on voluntary basis their request to be included in the national register, which is an important instrument not only for those that are looking for peers to implement their peer activities, but it's also important in terms of networking and cooperation between peers. Next slide, please. But it was also important for the national reference point to share the national experience, and of course to continue to cooperate also at international level when it comes to the peer review methodology. So our experimentations included also some transnational initiatives. In particular, we organized and promoted different international peer reviews, where the peers invited included mainly European experts from the EQAVET network. The main goal of these transnational peer reviews were to disseminate the European tools and to implement the European peer review methodology, but also to create and promote the exchange and cooperation among experts and professionals. Next slide, please. But these experimentations, anyway, represented not all and not enough for us. So the decision was taken to also promote a national plan for quality in VET, because as the previous speaker have mentioned, it is important to have a national coordination, and also to have, of course, a national institutional framework for implementing the European tools and instruments. So in 2012, the Ministry of Labour and Social Policies, together with the Ministry of Education, adopted for the first time the National Plan for Quality in VET. This plan was updated in 2007, and it was approved by the State and Region Conference in December 2007, when also a part of the Ministry of Labour and Education, also the region, social partners and VET providers took part in this process and had altogether a key and relevant role. Next slide, please. So the National Plan for Quality is very important for us because it's an institutional framework. Its aim is to create homogeneous choices and tools at national level, respecting the autonomy of local actors and stakeholders. It was inspired, of course, by the European dimension, and it was drafted according to the European recommendation and the European quality assurance framework. And it was and it is very important because it puts particular attention to the peer review methodology. Peer review is included in the national plan as one of the main tools, and VET providers are fostered to introduce self-assessment and the European peer review methodology among their methods of assessment. Next slide, please. Next, please. The next one, please. Okay, thank you so much. So after the adoption of the National Plan for Quality, the National Reference Point also started a completely new experimentation. It started in 2019 within the National Operational Program called PONSPAO, and it is promoted by the Ministry of Labour and Social Policies. This time, 7 schools and 7 VET providers have been involved. We are planning altogether 14 peer review visits and with involvement of 49 peers. Unfortunately, the outbreak of the COVID pandemic has not allowed us to terminate, to end the experimentation, which is still going on. And thanks to the management of this experimentation by Formazione, we hope that we will be able soon to have some interesting results and outcomes from this experimentation. But why is it so important? It is important because for the first time, a part of adapting the European peer review methodology to the national context, the goal, the aim is also to integrate the peer review methodology with the tools and methods used within our national schools evaluation system. So important is the integration, and also to see how to adapt these tools, of course, to what is at the moment going on at national, regional and local level. Next slide, please. Just to sum up also our lessons learned, and in particular with regards to the peer review methodology, I would like to stress that a lot of advantages have been listed by our VET providers. Thanks to our national experimentations, we get these feedbacks, and summarizing them, we can say that for our VET providers, the methodology is important because it is easy to apply, in particular for beginners and newcomers of the evaluation. It is an important methodology because the tools and methods are flexible and adaptable to different contexts. Even the goal or goals are flexible. In fact, we can evaluate one or more than one quality area. We have the positive feedback because of the high level of acceptance by the institutions and organizations that are evaluated. Peer review is also considered important because of the mutual learning that can be reached through this methodology. It is considered a perfect combination between theory and practice. It is important because it allows to reduce the feeling of isolation, strengthening the networking and cooperation among different actors and practitioners. And finally, it is considered relevant because it is cost-effective and economic. Next slide, please. So, in line with the picture that I have described and with our future actions, we hope that in the next future, the peer review methodology will allow us to find out further adaptations, but also we hope to invest more and more in the following points. First of all, in a systematic growth of the evaluation culture. It was already mentioned by another speaker who spoke before my presentation. So very important also for us, it's really to create an evaluation culture all over the territory. It means all over the country. We invested a lot on this point, and we are still investing, hoping that in the future we will be able really to spread this culture at different levels. Another important investment will be in the collaboration and cooperation between different stakeholders from different fields and sectors. It will be important also to transfer the knowledge in order to adapt and replicate the tools and models in the different contexts and geographical areas. Of course, we hope to continue to invest in the training of professionals, in the development of professional skills and competencies, in particular for those that are involved in quality assurance and evaluation. And finally, we hope that we will continue to collaborate in national and international initiatives related to quality assurance and evaluation, which allows us to enhance that, starting from the system level, just arriving to the provider level. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much for the attention.